All right. So this is a Boruto video. All right. You seen the title. This might be a little rantish, but I've been thinking about this topic and this idea for a video since we've been introduced to the Shinju and Boruto, and especially after we've seen them fight in combat and whatnot, and interacting with other characters. So my initial problem. Let's start off. I'll start off with two things. Right. I'll start off with my initial problems slash the retcons and kind of contradictions that we've seen with the existence and all that sort of shit, right? Because both of them in hand in hand. My problems are both the retcons and contradictions and whatnot. So first of all, I always had a problem with the conception, right? And the fact that Code created them, and obviously their creation was not too dissimilar to the tailed beasts in and of themselves, right? All the Jubi, or right? The Jubi, all the fucking Jubi, right? My bad. The tail beast, anyway. So, because they're all taken from the Ten Tails, and they're all given their own personalities and their unique traits, but their main bodies that are formed and created to be unique were originally taken from parts of the Ten Tails. Code did the same thing with his claw grinds. I had a problem with this because they never referenced the create all things jutsu. Code was essentially doing what the Sage of Six Paths did, but in a more physical sense, where he's literally just ripping chunks of this Ten Tails body off, and through the magic of the karma mark, which I'll get into, because the karma in and of itself is the entire retcon on the Otsutsuki abilities and how their power system works. So the karma, and then his magic with his blood and the karma, magically created these beings. So that's one problem I have. They don't ever explain anything past, like, the general explanation we get, like Kurama. Oh yeah, maybe it's because, Himawari, you have the blood of Naruto and the Hyuga clan, and you're close to basically being Otsutsuki, so I guess I reincarnated in you. Whatever, it doesn't matter. That's what he said. He just said, whatever, it doesn't matter, I'm here now. So they do that with a lot of things. Like, well, whatever, it doesn't matter, he created them. He has the powers of Otsutsuki technically through the claw mark. And then we have the other problem with, like I said, the karma mark, right? The karma mark is in and of itself an entire retcon on the Otsutsuki power system, because originally their power would be more biological and, through their own natural abilities, like they have in Rinnegan and whatnot. So what do I mean by this? Well, a trait that the Otsutsuki always had, and people near Otsutsuki, given, Biju Obito and Biju Madara, right? So Jubito and Jubi Madara, right? They were able to absorb chakra and ninjutsu because of the Rinnegan abilities granted through their newfound power being merged with the Ten Tails, right? Kaguya absorbing Renjutsu because of her Rinnegan abilities. Everybody who's had Rinnegan can absorb ninjutsu. Pain has done it with the Petra path, or the Peira. I forget what it's called, but you guys know, right? So he's done it. And this is a thing that they had that was kind of innate to their biology. This now has been moved to the Karma Seal, which Momoshiki did not have, by the way, at the end of the original Boruto line, which he was introduced with Kishimoto's writing. They introduced the Karma after the story's been adapted to the manga and whatnot. And then they eventually adapted with the anime, merging the manga and the animated storyline. Fixing a couple things, making a couple more things cohesive here and there, as far as like the scientist doctor and what his role in the story, and Momoshiki's design changed a little bit, right? But outside of those small things, the bigger thing that changed was the implementation of the karma mark that would become a retcon for the Otsutsuki and how they transitioned their power down. I don't know if you remember before, I wish I had a screenshot right now. In the past, the Otsutsuki, and even in the movie, Momoshiki mentioned what we kind of already knew about the chakra fruits, because Kaguya was obtaining and chasing chakra fruit, right? He chased it for power so she can fight against her clan or whatnot, but then the power corrupted. She turned to the Ten Tails and had to fight her sons, etc., etc. When they thought the Ten Tails came back just as itself to get the chakra fruit back, but it was really Kaguya, right, the whole time. But I digress. So they changed the way that Momoshiki explained how him and Kinshiki, he ate Kinshiki's, where he became a chakra fruit and he ate it to gain power. This is how the Otsutsuki passed power down in their clans through the manifestation of these fruits, akin to eating chakra pills and whatnot too, right? So that's how they got power before. Now in Boruto, it's been translated into this magical mark that can, and I don't like how they translate it and try to interpret it as like data, because that's going to be used for a bigger setup later that they're going to use in the plot of Boruto dealing with this Otsutsuki god. I just know it, because outside of that, it's like it was kind of interesting, but it's not really that interesting because they could just explain it without using the data references and terminology. But basically, he's downloading information from old Otsutsukis, and this is also something that contradicts itself later. I'm not going to stick on this for too long, but that shit is not even existent anymore. No longer does the data and the knowledge of old Otsutsuki battle warriors and all their lineage and knowledge they've experienced, the battle experience and all that shit doesn't matter anymore. Boruto doesn't thrive off of that. He doesn't use it innately or inherently either. That shit is non-existent. It's just a stupid part of the retcon and the perspective they were trying to give us with the karma mark, and half of that shit has just been wiped out and not even going to be used in the story anymore. So yeah, the karma mark, I have a problem with that too, right? And then let's get on the last one, the fact that the Otsutsuki have to be the thing devoured by the divine tree to bear fruit. That was never the case, and a lot of people have a misunderstanding about the chakra tree, right? The tree did not technically make the planet die. The planet does not die. Maybe that's how they're framing it now, because now the planet has chakra, which I'll get into later too real quick. But the planet was never exactly stated to have chakra, okay? The divine tree was always supposed to be the thing that absorbed the chakra from life on the planet, from all life on the planet, okay? It didn't absorb the chakra from the planet. If you want to frame it like the chakra on the planet, yeah, the chakra on the planet being the living things on that planet that have chakra, okay? The divine tree itself was not absorbing the life of the planet itself, okay? Yeah, maybe some of the nature energy is nourishing the planet, the tree itself, but as we've seen in the Great Ninja War, a divine tree was erected, the Ten-Tail was born, and it happened before, obviously, with Kaguya in the past. The planet still exists, okay? That's my point. The planet itself does not get drained from its nourishment because of the existence of a divine tree. The divine tree absorbs and takes root in the planet and absorbs chakra from all life on the planet, okay? This is how it's born. The Ten-Tails itself should consist of nature, energy. This is also another problem. I've mentioned this multiple times in videos before. You should go check some of them out. I'll link them at the end of this video. They'll pop up on the screen, because this shit is just all over the place, okay? The retcons and how they're trying to cancel out the depth that we had to make things super simple. And now a lot of this shit is not going to play out the same way that we would kind of think it would, because this shit doesn't work the same way, right? So the Ten-Tails and the divine tree, their connection is not the exact same anymore, because, well, as we know, the divine tree has been retconned, so the way it's born is different. And we know the Ten-Tails before was a piece of the divine tree, okay? It was a piece of the divine tree that was created and sprouted off of the Ten-Tails. Sprouted off of the divine tree. The Ten-Tails sprouted off of the divine tree. So technically, the Ten-Tails that Jorah has, or who was it, Kawaki, right? Ishiki and Kawaki, oh, my bad, I'm saying the wrong names. Code and Ishiki, they're Ten-Tails. What tree did this Ten-Tail sprout from? Because that's how we know they're supposed to exist. I think they're even retconning the existence of the Ten-Tails itself, because the Ten-Tails originally was something that sprouted from the tree. Are there other Ten-Tails in the universe? Okay, its origin has been changed. There has to be some bigger tree outside of the divine tree that was on Earth, that what we know to be Earth. Because from their perspectives, they're different realms and stuff like that, right? Different realms, different planes, whatever. We know them as planets. I'm not saying they don't know planets exist, but it's more of a different, it's a matter of perspective, right? When people say, oh, they're going to be space traveling, yeah, they will, but they're not going to be in a rocket ship, okay? They're going to be using space-time ninjutsu to travel through different planes that are also known as fucking planets, okay? So I digress again. The Ten Tails, where the fuck did it come from? There has to be multiple other ones in the universe somewhere, right? Or somebody who created this one? Did Ishiki himself create this one and start growing it? We know it's immature and not as developed as supposedly, right? It's supposed to be not as developed as the one from the Great Ninja War. So how are the things that are sprouting from it stronger? The power scaling makes no sense either, right? That's another thing I have a problem with. The power scaling should have naturally happened because Naruto and Sasuke were the strongest ones toward the end of the show. They fought the Ten Tails, which they struggled with. They couldn't even fight that on their own. Madara and all that whatnot, they had to get the Sage Six Paths help. They were able to fight him. They sealed him away, whatnot, boom, whatever. The kids, and Momoshiki pulled up again, right? After Madara and Kaguya, he was relatively, it was a fair strength gap between him and Kaguya and Madara, and it makes sense. He's another Otsutsuki. He's different. They're cultivating power. He's been alive since Kaguya's been dead. Of course he's going to be stronger, right? He was giving Naruto and Sasuke a little bit of a problem. All they ever needed to do in the story was take Naruto and Sasuke out of the story. They did not need to make Boruto and his company and everybody else on his age group magically and strong and like almost unreasonably surpass the power of the everybody previously, all the pseudo gods, meaning like Jubito and Madara and Kaguya and all those people, and Momoshiki and Kenshiki. They surpassed all of them. And mind you, it's before Two Blue Vortex, they were surpassing these people. Naruto, at the end of the first part of Boruto, was weaker than his son. Just let that sink in. When the day Kawaki killed Boruto in front of Naruto, they were both stronger than Naruto. That's why he couldn't do anything. That's why Code was stronger than Naruto and Sasuke as well. And it happened so quick, and the power just keeps going up. I feel like as long as the enemies were stronger than Sasuke and Naruto, just enough to give them a problem, that's all they needed to do. Once Naruto and Sasuke were out of the story, the only narrative and focus they would have to, and progression they would have to worry about is the kids catching up to a level relative to where Naruto and Sasuke were previously, because they were top dogs. It doesn't make sense for everybody, even these kids that don't have any sort of like special god Otsutsuki ability. They can fight claw grimes and all this other shit, and it doesn't make any sense, right? But I digress again. Let me get on track real quick, right? So the fact that these Ten Tails are just magically appearing, and they're similar to Tail Beasts, like I mentioned. They were sprouted from the Shinju. They were sprouted from the Ten Tails, okay? My problem with the Shinju, it's a problem that everybody else has, right? People question their durability. I've questioned their durability, okay? And you can pause some of these right here so you can understand what it's supposed to be, because first of all, I have a problem with their powers and their abilities. They have a Rinnegan in their eyes. And me mentioning what the Ten Tails is and what it's supposed to be, how come we don't see their use of nature energy at all, right? I think they're trying to redefine nature energy. I'll talk about that later. So we have a panel right here of Konohamaru blasting Matsuri with his double Rasengan. She's breaking apart and getting destroyed, turning into nothing, right? He completely, basically destroyed her. Do I have the panel of her floating? It's just the torso? I think I do. So Konohamaru destroys her with his double Rasengans. And it's no question that Boruto was also able to injure who's possibly the strongest of the Shinju. Why am I mentioning this? Well, because if they're anything like Jinchuriki or the Tail Beast, like we all like to kind of equate them to, which is a natural equation, right? We would have to remember that Four Tails Naruto, or is it Three Tails? My bad. This is Three Tails Naruto could not be pierced by the Kusanagi blade. Now, okay, you can say Boruto's stronger than Orochimaru. It doesn't matter, right? This is a practical attack that works on humans being stabbed. Okay, it doesn't matter in the ninja world. Madara can be stabbed by a low-level ninja, but is that going to happen? No, because he's fucking Madara. Okay, a low-level ninja could run up on him and stab him in his lungs with the kunai. Because his skin, he can't, unless he used the jutsu to make his skin hard, you know, outside of that sort of shit, right? So, yeah, and you can argue this is the chakra cloak, but we know his constitution is just different. So, this brings into question people asking, why does it seem like they're so fragile? Konohamaru using a double Rasengan on Matsuri. Now, you can argue, yeah, his leg getting cut off, that's like normal humans, right? That's relative. They're both relative to power, so Boruto can cut his leg off. A normal human would get his leg cut off, right? Even though there's no bone inside that shit. That's a note, right? Normal human would get his leg cut off, right? But what's up with Matsuri? The Rasengan does not do this to people, okay? I'm not saying the Rasengan cannot obliterate a person. I'm not saying it cannot. But the Rasengan does not completely blow people up. We've seen Naruto hit people with a giant Rasengan, double Rasengan, Rasen Shuriken even. It ravaged the person's body, fucking them up. You know, the only time somebody exploded from a Rasengan, like in this type of way, was Naruto and Sasuke's arms, because it clashed with that high density chakra from two different chakras, from the negative from opposite outputs of chakra. Sasuke's Chidori versus Naruto's Rasengan, full power. They clashed, created an explosion. You know, it was a reaction. This is the Rasengan. You can go back and look at every time Naruto used a Rasengan. It never ravaged somebody's body like this, okay? It doesn't do that. Even when he was fighting the white Zetsus in the war, a lot of them wouldn't get done like this. Some of them would, but a lot of them wouldn't get done like this. A lot of them would just get blown back. It's a pressure. It's a concussive attack. You know, it's a physical impact. It's kinetic, right? So, yeah, I don't understand. Well, I didn't understand, right? But then I started to think about it. Well, I guess we just have to accept the fact that their bodies are not the same in any way, shape, or form because of this unique way they're being born into this world. So we can't expect them, because they're strong, we can't expect them to be also physically durable. That's not how it works. And they seemingly don't regenerate either. They don't have regenerative abilities. So that puts into question, how the fuck are they such a threat? There's so many ninja in this world. What threat was Jorah? I mean, what threat was Kashin Koji speaking about to say that they are such a problem and they're gonna give us the worst future? What is that future? What is the worst future in a world where a Konohamaru level shinobi can double Rasengan Matsuri into dust? So what the fuck? How could the Claw Grimes? How could they overwhelm the entire ninja world? And there's all sorts of shinobi walking around. I want to see how Gaara got done, because it has to be some bullshit. It has to be some convenient shit. This doesn't make sense. The scales are uneven. This can be done to the higher level Shinju with thought, and you know, obviously she got tricked. Okay, she got tricked. But the potential of them being able to get blasted is there, right? You telling me if all the shinobi jumped them, no shinobi tricks to catch them off guard, like him trying to romance her, or Boruto doing a flying Rajing sneak attack because he's a ninja? This is why this worked? You telling me? Like, no, like all the ninja, none of them can think of something. Nothing else can happen. No ceiling jutsus. Like they were all whipping out in the Great Ninja War. This is stupid, okay? And then if we want to get back on this right here with their chakra reserves being near infinite and their nature energy and the chakra levels being, they're supposed to be way stronger than this, right? Okay, the original Ten Tails obviously didn't have feelings or emotion, but that's the difference between them. That's why I think Jorah also is closer to the original Ten Tails, right? That's why I said that previously before, multiple videos. But yeah, the fact that they're supposed to be nature energy, it just exuding it doesn't happen anymore, okay? And then this is the tab I should have shown when I mentioned to create all things jutsu, because I think that this should be still relevant more so now than ever, because now they've given a name, okay? And this should still be relevant because it always was relevant in Naruto, even though in the forefront that's Kishimoto's problem and a lot of other mangaka's problem. They tend to like overlook and not fit the inner workings, and while they're writing the story, they think of these things and have these things thought out, and that, you know, is the explanation for their abilities in the power system. But as the story goes, they don't really get that deep into these explanations right here. And I'll let you pause there here because I've mentioned this in a video of how both of these clans and multiple other clans use these different, you know, roots and offshoots of yin and yang release that we also saw during the, you know, Otsutsuki being introduced to the story and whatnot, okay? So if I were to go further and talk about some more problems I have, right, I would say, why do the Shinju not use Rinnegan abilities, okay? Why do they not use Rinnegan abilities? Now, outside of them using the little stupid code abilities with making claw marks just appear out of nowhere, which I think is stupid. Why do they not have any unique, as they call it, Shinjutsu, ocular Shinjutsu? Where are those at, right? Where are the new Rinnegan abilities at? How come they're not born with any? How come if he's part Sasuke, where is his Tomoe at, right? How come he doesn't have Tomoe? That should be a thing technically, right? He should at least be able to awaken them. They should all actually have Tomoe off rip. If we're keeping it real, they should all have Tomoe off rip in their eyes because they were created directly from the Ten Tails. They were created directly from the Ten Tails. Now you can argue, okay, maybe because they're half everything else, half other people, half part, you know, potentially Ishiki, part potentially, you know, part code all the way, right? Part, you know, who they're based off of also, that can water the Rinnegan down. You can argue that, but their feet aren't even fucking human. So like, I don't know. We don't know how much of them is watered down, right? They're humanoid to enough, right? So whatever. But yeah, also, especially if this one has the abilities of Matsuri, of Moege, how come, yeah, they should also have more abilities based on, you know, Sasuke. He has the lightning, but where's this Sharingan Uchiha ocular abilities that he should have? He has Code's claw mark ability, which is a Shinjutsu ability. Now, how come this one doesn't have any of the Uchiha offshoot abilities? He should be stronger than the other three. Technically, he should be stronger than all of them, unless there's a different ratio of Jubi inside of each one. So maybe he's the most Jubi, like I've been saying, right? I don't know. But I have another, let me get into the last thing I think of, because I've been ranting this whole video, right? It's kind of a rant video, but I have a lot of screenshots for some later shit. So I think I kind of covered everything, but I'm gonna mention this, right? Now this is something I've talked about, and I will, like I said, I never take credit for some shit if I heard it somewhere else. But I had to think about this a little harder, because I originally thought that Boruto's Uzuhiko, when they got negated and nullified by Jorah, and he mentioned the principle that was similar to him and his Jubi bombs, I assumed he was speaking of rotation, right? Then I witnessed the Walkie Talkie podcast talk about the Jubi bombs relation between rotation and the Rasengan, and they brought up a really good specific point of how the rotation is not exactly what the Jubi bombs do. It's what the Rasengan does to mimic what the Jubi bombs do, basically, right? And I guess that made me think, right? Maybe this is true, right? Maybe they're not talking about the principle of rotation, even though the Uzuhiko clearly rotates, right? I still think it's a heavy possibility, right? It's a heavy possibility they're talking about that similar the similarity between the rotation and whatever principle it is that's inside of the Jubi bombs that allows them to mix those two chakras together and make a perfect sphere that melds together, right? So the same type of rotation, and maybe they are thinking of like a centrifuge, because the centrifuge will mix things together or completely separate things based on what you're using the centrifuge for, if you know what the centrifuge is for. So they'll use that high speed rotation to mix things together that normally wouldn't mix together in a regular way. That's the same thing as when you're mixing like some eggs in a blender, right? It's a different scale, of course, but or the centrifuge is used for the opposite, to separate these two things, right? So maybe they are talking about that, right? But maybe I thought about it a little deeper, right? Maybe, because Boruto mentions that he's using the planet's chakra, right? And I had to think about that, because there is no fucking chakra in the planet. That's not how that works. I always thought, I've said that in a previous video too, there should not be chakra in the planet, okay? Even in this old description, when they say from the moment they assumed humanoid form, mankind had walked a world of strife, waging war against one another. The ground was stained with blood, as if drinking it, the divine tree took root in the earth. In time, the divine tree bore a single fruit, and the clan migrated from another world in search of it. They were the Otsutsuki clan. Kaguya, the leader of the Otsutsuki, ate the divine tree's fruit and became the originator of chakra, and with that tremendous power subdued the world in a blink of an eye. That's what she did, okay? Now, the divine tree, like I said, doesn't necessarily take the chakra from the planet. Okay, they mentioned how the blood was stained with the ground. This is more of a poetic sort of thing, but this should let you know is drinking the life essence. The blood-stained ground is drinking the life essence from humanity on the earth. On the earth, okay? And it bore a single fruit. The planet doesn't die out after the tree was born, okay? So I'm mentioning this again because the fucking planet should not have chakra. I think that's also another retcon they're doing in Boruto, right? So Boruto mentions the Uzuhiko. I should have a screenshot of it, but I don't. So let's just go off of our memories, okay? You know if I'm talking bullshit. Boruto mentions how he's using the planet's chakra and its centripetal force, the rotation force from the planet, right? And it's infinite because the planet doesn't stop spinning, right? Okay, and the planet obviously is big, so he's hinting at it having a lot of chakra, and the energy that it spins with is infinite, right? Jorah, being a Shinju, should have nature energy in him. His chakra should be infused with nature energy as well. It's from a divine tree. So I'm thinking maybe the energy, the principle that Jorah was referring to that links thereto abilities is nature energy. I'm thinking that they might start to try to go off of that, but I don't know. They have never mentioned nature energy since the beginning, the conception of this whole Jubi Shinju shit in Naruto. They have not spoken about it, okay? They have not spoken about it at all yet. So I don't understand why they haven't and what their problem with talking about that is, but they haven't done it, so hey, what can I say? So yeah, I don't think there's anything else much for me to say. Oh yeah, this is for another video. You see this? Jiraiya is on par with Orochimaru, okay? We're gonna talk about that. On par, a powerful person on par with Orochimaru. The Sanin who loves freedom, his strength is bottomless, okay? Even though he's a goofball. But listen, that's for a separate video, because I be seeing people disrespect some of these characters in hindsight and the perspective they think about their power in. Okay. Here's that panel I was talking about. So his rising guns are able to destroy her. So now I can mention how this, obviously, like I said, they just don't have the same constitution, being made of the trees. They're more tree than Ten Tails' body, but it's a combination of both. So their bodies aren't exactly physical. Okay, their bodies aren't as physical as a human's body is. So they're more or less hollow on the inside. So we just have to accept that it works like that. This is how they are. There's no blood. So attacks like Konohamaru's can effectively destroy them because they're not that strong. In that sense, they're not durable. Okay, they're strong, but they're not durable. Okay, so Konohamaru effectively can destroy them. And that's why it makes no sense almost when you think about the potential of multiple shinobi being able to destroy these claw grinds and these dudes right here, especially with them not having any knowledge. Like, how do they become that big of a threat? Do they evolve? I think they might end up evolving, okay? Some way, shape, or form. One of them might eat the other's soul bulb, the soul thorn, and gain power like Momoshiki did with Kinshiki, okay? And, yeah, I think I said everything I need to say, man. I think the nature energy is what he's referring to when he talks about the Uzuhiko having the same principle. It might not be the rotation. Even though the rotation seems like it should be the most likely thing, right? He referenced the Biju bomb and you know, the Uzuhiko being similar. We know that Uzuhiko's entire thing is about rotation and spin. That makes the most sense for that correlation to be once again made and drawn in a comparison, right? But whatever, I don't know. I think I'm done. I have a problem with codes creating all things, or the lack of creating all things jutsu being mentioned. The Ten Tails not being mentioned, how they're created and sprouted from another tree or whatnot. That's always been a problem. Same thing with the retcons, with the karma mark and the whole I have to feed the Otsutsuki to the tree for it to bear fruit. Doesn't make sense. Okay, I think I'm done with everything I have to say. Like I said, this was kind of a rant video. I'm out. I reach out to that truth all my life,